What is up, everyone? My name is Wrigley Willis, once again from the Semi-Average podcast. And boy, do we have some breaking news to talk about today as one of the game's best players, basketball's best players, James Harden, has been dealt to Brooklyn to form a three-headed monster of three of the best scorers, if not the top three scorers, depending on who you ask. Most people wouldn't say so, in the entire NBA. And Kyrie, KD, and now former MVP, 30-plus points a game, James Harden is being added to the Brooklyn Nets. We're going to dive in to the full trade here today. And I want to start out with what Harden to Brooklyn means for this Brooklyn team. Now, what they're giving up, they're losing Karis LeVert, who, when you talk about secondary scoring options with Spencer Dinwiddie being out for probably the next 3 or 4 months, you're losing that. They're also losing Rodion Kirkus, who's like a 6'9", defend a little bit, you can play make a little bit, good passer. Losing him. They're giving up 3 first-rounders of their own in 22, 24, and 26. They're giving up 4 pick swaps in 21, 23, 25, and 27. So hypothetically, that means Houston now owns Brooklyn's first-round pick in the next 7 NBA drafts, hypothetically. Now, obviously, they're getting one of the best playmakers, one of the best scorers, and one of the biggest enigmas in all of basketball in James Harden out of Arizona State, forks up. But let's get into what this offense could look like for the Nets. And, another big thing, the reason why we all suspected this in the first place, James Harden and D'Antoni reunited after only being apart for a couple months. You have Kyrie and KD there. DJ, who's apparently the NBA's best recruiter ever, bringing in 3 top 10 guys. I don't know if Kyrie's top 10, but figure of speech. Now, this offense is going to be really interesting because even without Harden, the Nets have looked relatively good on the offensive end this year, in my opinion at least. It's the defense that sucks, and when you bring in Nash, D'Antoni, and Stoudemire as your, coaching trio, you can't expect a lot of defense. You're bringing back the old Suns, and the reason why they couldn't beat the Spurs because the Spurs were like, we're just going to score on you at will, inside, whenever you want to. And, in 15 seasons, Steve Nash was limited in the playoffs 7 of those times by the San Antonio Spurs. So, anyways, it's kind of redundant. Just talking Spurs, because big Spurs guy. No more in a Rockets hat. I'm just going with the theme. But this offense is going to be sick. A lot of people, I'm assuming, I've seen it on Twitter already, are just going to be talking about, it's just going to be iso ball every possession. Give it to KD, give it to Kyrie, give it to James Harden. They're going to score at will. You can just space everyone out, have DJ in the low post area, ready in the dunker spot in case there's help off. But I think the thing that's going to surprise a lot of people is the movement that this team's going to have. We saw what KD was in Golden State. We all talked about how the Warriors might – I think it was just filling noise at that point because obviously the Warriors were going to be elite when they brought in KD. But what everyone was saying was KD's going to ruin the flow of that offense. He's going to demand the ball too much. He, mathematically, if you add all the stars players' touches up, it doesn't make sense. Someone's going to have to lose minutes, lose touches, lose shots, lose points, right? Who's it going to be? Is anyone going to step down from that role? Ended up being Clay. Now KD's gone anyway, so it doesn't even matter. But this Nets offense is going to be sick. And the number one thing is it stems from their guard positions with Harden and Kyrie. Now, when we look at this logistically, you think Kyrie's going to be the main point guard, the main ball handler, just because he's a point guard. Harden's 2, and that's just how basketball works. I think the Nets are going to do something really interesting where Harden's going to run the point full-time pretty much, except obviously you're going to let KD bring the ball up. You're going to let Kyrie bring the ball up. When Dinwiddie gets back, you're going to let Dinwiddie bring the ball up. But we're talking pure throughout the entire game. Who's the majority of the time, who's your point guard? I think James Harden's going to be running this offense completely. And Kyrie's going to be an off-ball shooter a little bit. Having a double screen set down for him, coming up, catch and shoot, get ready. Or if the help's late, or if the help's there, he's going to be able to drive to the hole. There's going to be help everywhere. He's going to be ready for a kick out. Now, the Nets play tonight. And I don't know, I doubt Harden's eligible to play. but it's very unlikely. I doubt he would even be able to get a plane ticket to Brooklyn in time. But yeah, this offense is going to be really cool. I think with James Harden being the main ball handler and having Durant and Kyrie at opposite wings, I don't know if there's a defensive team in history that could hypothetically stop that, like ever. I mean, it's the three, like, if we're looking through the history of the NBA and you want to talk about dudes who can just get you a bucket whenever you want, this has to be the best trio we've ever seen. KD, Kyrie, and James Harden are guys where if you need them to score 50, they will score 50 at will. Three players in the NBA, when it's a very short list to begin with, that have defenses at their mercy throughout the full 48 minutes of the game. And they're all on the same team. This Nets team is going to not only be amazing, they're going to be so fun to watch. Hopefully Kyrie comes back from his mission trip in Nepal or whatever's going on, solving world hunger. I don't know what's going on with him. It's really hindering my fantasy team. How dare he? But we're looking at the best three-headed trio offensively since Curry, KD, and Clay. But when you add in the variable that all three of them can create their shot at will, all three of them are shooting good percentages. I know James Harden isn't shooting a good percentage this year. That's going to change with the new scenery, new offense. He wants to play. He's going to be playing better with them. But KD and Kyrie are having great years, especially Kyrie when he was playing. He was shooting so efficiently. It looked like 2014 Kyrie all over again, which is a very big positive. Now, looking at this Brooklyn team when we get into the playoffs, I think they're going to essentially run the table. I know the supporting cast isn't there. They lost Dinwiddie to injury. LeVert's gone. He's gone to the Pacers, who we talked about in the last episode. We're going to get into them next after we get into Houston. We're going to go over all four teams, big four-team trade. We're going to go over every single one of them and get a feel of what the new team looks like, better or worse. Are they more built for the future? Do they screw themselves? All that kind of stuff. But yeah, Brooklyn should be the one. They will be the one. And I was talking to my little brother about this. I think they lose 3 games up until the finals. And assuming that LA makes it to the finals, I think that an LA-Brooklyn finals matchup would be like I almost want to say it would be a better series than the Cavs and Warriors in 2017 was that the yeah, I think so. I mean, you have 5 players when you talk about the biggest faces in the NBA, when you're LeBron, AD, Kyrie, KD, Harden, right? 5 of those faces, they're top 10 faces in the league, and they're going to be squaring off in the finals hypothetically. I mean, I can't be happier. It's going to be awesome to watch. Now, let's get into the other suitors of this trade. The Rockets haul for giving up James Harden. They're getting Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Rodions Kurucs. We talked about the picks. They're getting an extra first from Milwaukee that Cleveland had, a 2022 unprotected first. And what a haul that the Rockets are getting. And now you look at a Rockets team who has, I'm going to spit my gum. 1 second. You look at a Rockets team who's now going to have a really, really dynamic and quasi-typical Rockets big 3 with, I'm not counting Cousins. He's been terrible this year. With Wall, Oladipo, and Christian Wood, they all have really athletic frames for their typical positions who combine things that their typical positions can't usually do. Christian Wood, we've seen, has been playing on the perimeter this year, knocking down 3 balls. John Wall is an athletic freak at the point guard position, even after his injuries and all the time he's missed. We've seen it this year. His playmaking has gotten better as well for Houston. And you add in Victor Oladipo, who I think is one of the best two-way shooting guards in the league. And, he's just under 20 points a game this year, and that's coming off of a terrible injury. And we saw Oladipo last year struggle. It was a big struggle. He averaged, I think, he came back towards the end of the year, played like 12 games, and he averaged like 11 and a half a game, shooting under like 31% from 3. It was bad to watch. Bad to watch. Oladipo's looking a lot better. I think Houston, given the circumstances and given that other NBA execs know that James Harden is on the market and you can possibly get him for anything you wanted to because Houston has to move him, you got a really good haul. You got essentially Brooklyn has cursed themselves with draft picks again. Hopefully this doesn't end up the same way when they traded for KG and Terry and Darren Williams and Paul Pierce. Geez, that was how long ago was that? Was somehow they've recovered after giving up all those first round picks. But they're obviously banking on them now, which is a smart decision when you've got those three players. But they also lost Taurean Prince and Jared Allen. So LeVert, Allen, Prince, Karooks, 4 guys off your bench. LeVert was a starter. It's going to be weird. They're not going to have any – I mean, Kyrie, KD, and Harden are probably going to account for like 75% of the points in this team. But back to the Rockets. Sorry. I'm really excited about their new big three. I think they offer a lot of possibilities for the Rockets to really open up their offense, and it's something we haven't seen in Houston for a while, which is good. And, looking into the future for Houston, once you get off that Wall contract and once you get off this Oladipo contract, because hypothetically 2 years in the future, Victor Oladipo is probably not going to be the level of player he is now. He's going to look a lot like last year's Oladipo coming off of injury. You get off those 2 contracts, you have Christian Wood on an affordable deal. You have 7 first-round picks in the next 7 years. Oh, and the Milwaukee first, so you have 8. 7 from Brooklyn. They're sitting pretty for the future. They couldn't have done much better given the circumstances, given what Harden and what John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins said about Harden last night, which was crazy, by the way. But yeah, the Rockets, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a trading Kawhi to Toronto kind of deal, where you can take DeMar DeRozan. That didn't work out for us. Here's Jakob Poeltl. Is that good? Yeah, give us a top 5 player in the league. But good job for Houston's execs for getting something formidable in return. Even though Exum and Karooks probably aren't going to be anything, we've seen Dante Exum, coming in at number 5 overall and ended up being nothing off of the rip. But Kirkus could be a serviceable player off the bench. We talked about earlier. Decent at defense, gets up and down the floor. He's a good passer, spaces the floor for you. So it'll be interesting. So let's go into the team that we talked about on Monday's episode, and as the Indiana Pacers. They were able to swing Victor Oladipo for Caris LeVert and a second. Second doesn't really matter much. We're not going to be talking about that. But Caris LeVert, when you talk about what this does for Indiana's defense, I think it adds a level of needed athleticism and quickness on the offensive end. Because watching the game last night between Indiana and who did they play? They played Golden State, right? Yeah, Golden State. They play in slow-mo a lot. Like Kyle Anderson needs to be on the Pacers because he would fit perfectly. He should play point guard for them. But you look at the dynamic duo in their backcourt now, where they upgrade. In my opinion, it's an upgrade for where Indiana's at, getting LeVert over Oladipo. They have Brogdon, who's your shoot efficiently, don't turn the ball over, get the offense in their flow, score 20-plus a night, couple assists, couple rebounds, good defense. You have that, and then you combine that with the player who's streaky, stupid quick, can create his own shot at will, not from, physicality, but more from a athleticism stance. And you add a player who really can blossom into something more, which is important for Indiana because that's more of their identity. I think this Oladipo, obviously Oladipo revitalized his career in Indiana, was top 8 in MVP voting that one year, put them on the map. Injuries kind of have killed his career since then, which is really unfortunate because Oladipo is such a fun player to watch with his speed and athleticism, his finishing ability, his defense. But with the identity of the Pacers, getting Caris LeVert is a big move for them. You now have Sabonis, Brogdon, LeVert, and Warren. If you want to throw in Miles Turner, you could throw in Miles Turner. All under 27, 28. You're building for the future. Indiana's going to be a scary team for the next 3 years, guaranteed at this point. Now let's get into the final team that was involved in this trade, which is Cleveland, they were able to get Jared Allen and Taurean Prince. And essentially all they gave up was Exum and the Milwaukee first that they had. Now, Milwaukee in 2022, we're all expecting, especially with Giannis signing the extension, that pick isn't going to be any lower than probably 22. So getting Jared Allen is pretty formidable for that, and I think it's a pretty good upgrade because you look at Andre Drummond, his tenure in Cleveland's probably going to be up soon. I know Cleveland's kind of skyrocketing right now. They're playing good. Colin Sexton's been great. Andre Drummond's honestly played good as well. You know, he's improved a lot as a playmaker. I know there's that video of him like frozen for like 15 seconds on the shot clock. No one gets open. I don't know what that layup was. I mean, I guess I should play in the NBA, right? But you're adding more youth to a team that needs youth, and you're now in a position where if you're able to get rid of Drummond, you're not standing alone at the center position with Zizic if he's even there in Cleveland anymore. So I like Jared Allen in Cleveland. I think it fits their identity too. They like to get up and down the floor, and having a center. He's like baby Andre Drummond, if you will, Jared Allen is. And then Taurean Prince is kind of a filler player. He'll probably play like 16 minutes a night for Cleveland. It'll be interesting. So that wraps up the full dynamic of this trade. Shams was able to win it, by the way. He got there before Woj did in terms of getting all of the assets down on paper in the tweet. So shout out Shams. It's one of my favorite battles. People talk about Jordan versus the rest of the league, Magic versus Bird, LeBron versus Curry. I'm all about Shams versus Woj, man. It's the battle of the century, and it's not going to stop for a while. These guys are in their prime. Shams takes this one. Even though Woj broke it first, he got all of the details down. Shout out Shams. But yeah, it's very interesting, and I like the package. I think there's looking at this trade 2 or 3 years from now. I don't think you're going to see a lot of losers from this. Maybe other than Cleveland, but they gave up a pick that is going to be a mid to late first in Dante Exum, and you got Jared Allen. I don't think there's going to be any losers from this trade. It's really cool. It worked out for everyone. The Rockets start the youth movement. You know, the Nets are in win now mode. Now look like are we ready to say they're the favorite over the Lakers? Are we ready to have that conversation? I think the Lakers have a better supporting cast by a lot. But you look at what Brooklyn has now, it's just nuts. I mean, hypothetically, you look at it just a random night, KD could have 37, Kyrie could drop in 33, and Harden could have 31 and 14. It's going to be so nuts, especially in that offensive system they're working. Now, Brooklyn's going to be so bad at defense. There's going to be Nets games this year where it's going to be like 156 to 147. They win. It's going to be awesome to watch. Not for the old heads though. Sorry. So moving on, I want to keep going over some of the upcoming playoff games that are coming up. Another one, this one, it might not be the one that everyone's talking about, but it's one that interests me a lot, and that is Green Bay and the Los Angeles Rams that are going to be squaring off on Saturday midday, just before the Ravens and Bills game. Now, when we talk about this game, obviously Green Bay is coming in as the favorite out of the NFC. You have at this point, it's pretty much guaranteed that Aaron Rodgers is the MVP. It shouldn't be anyone else. As much as I want it to be Josh Allen, it's not going to be Josh Allen. Aaron Rodgers is the MVP. And a lot of people like to talk about, well, Rodgers isn't going to be that great in the playoffs. He's only got one option. Well, the entire season, people couldn't stop that one option. The Packers and Bills are set up very similarly in a lot of regards. Gunslinger, smart, strong-arm quarterback that's able to fit into tight windows, Allen and Rodgers. And you got their go-to receiver that just it's that high school football look at it where it's just, we're going to run the same play until you can prove you can stop it. Why not? If it keeps working, it keeps working. Why not? But looking a little bit more into this game, Aaron Donald got hurt, as most of y'all know, against Seattle. But according to Cameron Da Silva of Microsoft News Sports, Aaron Donald, in his own quotes, is in no pain from torn rib cartilage. He already said himself he'll be ready come Saturday. Now, he obviously left the game, and I just want to read this article a little bit more in depth. It says he feels no pain even though it's torn rib cartilage. I think Aaron Donald is just actually an alien at this point. But why I bring that up is because the interior part of the Green Bay Packers offensive line has not been playing too great. as of recently. Elgin Jenkins is awesome, and Corey Lindsey's been blooming this year, especially. But when we talk about a guy like Aaron Donald, who I'm just going to look something up real quick, but we talk about a guy like Aaron Donald, I doubt there's going to be anything that's going to be able to stop that, except possibly an injury. Now, another player that's injured is Green Bay's David Bakhtiari, first team All-Pro. He's going to, be an all-decade team member probably when we talk about the 2010s or 2020s. He's nuts, right? Best tackle, arguably, in the NFL this year. He's done. That doesn't have to do so much with Donald, but it has to do with all of the Rams' pass attack options. Leonard Floyd is going to be a heat-seeking missile off the edge. Obviously, last week, Jared Veld here, who was playing with the Colts because of their injury with Anthony Costanzo, he was on the practice squad, got moved up. Since he was on the practice squad, Green Bay is eligible to sign him, and they did. So Veld here, who had a really good week against Buffalo. Granted, it was Mario Addison, Jerry Hughes coming off the edge, and Daryl Johnson, not the greatest pass rushers. They were, and for whatever reason, he made them look like they were trying to contain Rivers in the pocket, like they're going to have to contain Lamar Jackson. It was weird. But Beltier did a very solid job. But when you look at the pass rushers that the Rams bring in, like Donald and Leonard Floyd, and even Morgan Cox, who played pretty good against Seattle, at least in the run game, I don't see a way that the Packers are going to be able to go with that. Game starts and Aaron Rodgers comes on the field. He's just wheeling and dealing from the start. The protection's nice. The receivers are getting open immediately. Big Bob Tonyan for 15. Hit Devontae Adams for 17. Quick wide receiver screen to Valdez-Scantling, brings it up the sideline for another first down. They're always rolling out of the gates. And we haven't seen them play a team with a good pass rush other than the Bears recently. And I think that's really going to throw a whole kink in that offense. Now, going further into that, I want to talk about the Packers' number one playmaker, which is Devontae Adams, and the Rams' number one defensive playmaker, arguably, in Jalen Ramsey. Now, when these two match up, Jalen Ramsey allowed 4 catches for like 40 yards to DK Metcalf in the last game. He played the inside position on him the entire game, out-physicaled him. If DK wanted to go deep, he was stride for stride. Jalen Ramsey wasn't letting him come across the middle and get inside. He played that game perfectly. Russell Wilson didn't have his number one option. He had to go Tyler Lockett the whole game. David Moore was nowhere to be found. The Rams shut down one of the best offenses in the entire NFL. And now they got to face another, a more veteran one, a more well-built one, in my opinion. But Jalen Ramsey versus Devontae Adams is going to be awesome for this reason. Devontae Adams' closest comparison kind of player in the NFL is probably Stephon Diggs. Now, my Super Bowl prediction is Packers, Bills, right? Packers, Bills. I want to see what Devontae Adams can do against a guy like Jalen Ramsey when he is the only number one option on the field. Because we're talking about great physical corners, even though Trey White isn't as physical as Jalen Ramsey. It's going to be a big game for the Bills in a sense to watch this one and see and learn from other teams. Is Devontae Adams going to be able to carry that offense down the field as the playmaker? Obviously, A-Rod's going to put the ball where it needs to go. Is Adams going to be able to get open against a guy like Ramsey? Is Adams going to be able to get open against a guy like Trey White in the Super Bowl? These are all questions that tie in together, in my opinion. So this is going to be, I know the whole game I'm going to be watching Ramsey versus Adams no matter where they are on the field. It's going to be great. I can't wait. Now, what really boils down the true essence of this game, if the Rams have any shot in hell to win against Green Bay, they have to trust in their defense, which I think they can do if Aaron Donald is playing and truly isn't in any pain and is going 100% and he's just completely built different compared to every other NFL player in the league and could just play with torn cartilage and it doesn't affect him. The Rams have to be able to do something on offense. And I'm assuming Jared Goff's playing still, we all saw that amazing play from Cooper Kupp. When Goff let go of that was about 15, 18 yards behind where the ball needed to be. It's almost as if he can't throw the long ball at all anymore because of the surgery. And obviously, that's why they went Wolford, because they knew Goff couldn't complete these passes. So we're going to be looking at a lot of dink and dunk passes, which the Rams have the receivers and tight ends to do so. Robert Woods is probably going to have a massive week on Saturday. So is Cooper Kupp. But another X factor, the guy I said that would break out against Seattle, Cam Akers, has got a lot to prove in this game against Green Bay. Because obviously, Green Bay's secondary is very, very talented, stemming around one player, Jair Alexander, who in my opinion is the second best corner in the NFL this year, maybe number one. I'll argue that. Jalen Ramsey or Jair Alexander, who do you want? Who's the better corner, right? I think Gilmore and Trey White, they were number one, number two last year. They both fell off a little bit. But between those two, and if you want to throw James Bradbury in, which is if you want to get completely crazy, you can do that. But where was I going with that? I always do this. But yeah, Rams offense, you gotta it's gonna be a weird thing with Goff. Like, are you gonna put trust in him to make a 25-yard outside the hashes pass to Robert Woods? Is he going to be able to get that ball there? I don't know. And the Packers' run defense is super underrated. Kenny Clark stuffs that middle like no one else. So Cam Akers is going to have a much more difficult time running the ball against Seattle. Because against Seattle, the Rams O-line was moving their D-line at will, and Akers was getting 6+ every single time, broke 3 big plays away for touchdowns. He was nuts in that game. He looks like an impending star, by the way. I'm really excited for what that's going to be for Seattle, or for LA. But moving on. LA Green Bay. I'm going to give a game prediction. I think Green Bay is going to end up coming out with this one, but it's going to be a really close game. I'm going to say 27-23 Green Bay. The Rams cover the spread, but Green Bay moves on. Okay, so now it's time for prospect scouting. The theme I put on my Twitter poll, you can follow me on Twitter at Wrigley with 3 Ys because I made it when I was in 8th grade. We all have past demons, okay? Just kidding. But put a Twitter poll out asking who I should do the theme for my prospect scouting. And my followers decided it should be players I played against in high school. I was always the white guy at the end of the bench who could play some decent defense and shoot some good threes. And I played on some decently all right teams. So diving into the first player, all of y'all have heard his name this year. Greg Brown has been crazy for UT. UT is rolling. Their offense is sick. Shaka Smart finally figured out how to play, get a team to play defense together as a team. And they beat Kansas. They beat West Virginia. That game was awesome, by the way. Took care of ISU. And they've been rolling. They're 10-1. And Greg Brown has been a big piece of that. He's averaging 12-8 this year. The 6'9", 205-pound freshman out of Austin, Texas. He played for a school called Vandegrift he was a freshman when I was a freshman, yeah. And sophomore year, trying to remember I can't remember if I played against him while playing for my high school team or if it was for my select team. I believe it was my select team. But I was on short baseline, and he was cutting to the rim, and he got a pass, and I just made a business decision to stay out of the way because Greg Brown is an absolute freak of nature athlete, jump out of the gym kind of player. He's one of those players you see him, the skinny calf kind of guy, where he's very twitchy with his athleticism, that's not a bad thing at all. It's a plus. And he can soar. The guy soars on rebounds. He jumps out of the gym. He's dunked on numerous players this year. Is that a real stat? No, but we've all seen it. But when we look at Greg Brown's game, coming into this season, he was a projected mid-first round pick, if you will, if you were to enlist in the draft immediately as a freshman. But he has skyrocketed up boards and in my boards. I have him as a top 5 overall player in the class now. You look at the numbers, they're not amazing. He's averaging 15-8, 2 blocks, half a steal, and only – oh, wait, I'm looking at his home stats. That's my bad, y'all. He's averaging 12-8, block, half a steal, in 21 and a half minutes. The kid's playing 21 and a half minutes for a team that is number 4 in the nation, and he has been one of their best players. Now you go to Shaka Smart, why isn't he playing more? I don't know. He played 16 minutes against Kansas. I don't really get it, but UT ended up getting the dub. They blew him out. That's probably why. I didn't watch that game. But yeah, when we dive into Greg Brown and why he's going to translate to the NBA level, he's improved his three-point shooting, and not only his three-point shooting, his ability to shoot contested jumpers. I think that's a big thing that gets undervalued at the college game because everyone's so worried about, basketball super minds these days or no mid-ranges. That's freaky. Don't do that. It's the same as a layup, right? But Greg Brown has the ability to hit contested twos, step outside the arc, hit a three, be an athletic freak, finish at the rim, guard three positions. The kid's going to be nuts. Now, when we get into his player comparison, I had a tough time with this one. And I mentioned this player in the last video. Former Syracuse Orangeman, Jeremy Grant is who I'm giving Greg Brown's comparison to. The lean 6'9" body with twitchy athleticism, can play on the perimeter, can play inside, bangs on defenders, can dunk at will. Not the greatest, physical guy when you want to talk about boxing out, fighting for position, setting screens. But he's all that. What you're losing with him is you're getting things that half the NBA players can't even put together. Being a 6'9" guy that can play on the perimeter, who can, in the triple threat, can shoot in your face while also drive right by you and dunk on your 7'2" big man. Greg Brown is going to be a dynamic player. He's going to be so dynamic in whatever offense he goes to in the NBA. One team I would really like to see him play for is Cleveland next year. Let's say the Cavs have pick 6 and they're able to get Greg Brown. I really like their profile going forward, especially after getting Jared Allen, 2 UT members in the front court for the Cavs. But then you look at the Cavs lineup, if they were able to do that. You go Sexland with Garland and Sexton. And you got Okoro, Greg Brown, and Jared Allen. Defensively, that's awesome. Athletically, that's elite. They become a top 6 athletic profile kind of team in the NBA with that move alone. And then you're built for the future. So I really like Greg Brown. His shooting percentage hasn't been great. He's shooting 29% from college three. But he really started off hot at the beginning of the year, and he's cooled down recently. He did hit 3 for 4 from 3 against Iowa State. But he struggled from 3 in a lot of games against West Virginia, against Sam Houston State for whatever reason. But Greg Brown is going to profile to be one of the better players in this class. He has the big play ability, the big face ability, if you will. And I think he's going to profile into a great pro. Now, the next player we're going to get into is a guy named Mike Miles, who is a freshman guard from Lancaster, Texas at TCU. He's 6'1", 195. And in his freshman year, when you go through the landscape of every team in basketball, you look, Mike Miles probably isn't going to play. He's averaging 13.5, 3.5, and 3 this year with TCU, who has been a little bit of a surprise team. They've beaten some good teams. They're on a 3-game losing streak, but 2 of those games are to Kansas and Baylor, so come on. But they beat KSU. They've beaten some other good teams. And we look at Miles' stats in 2020. No one was talking about this guy with any draft buzz, by the way. He's averaging 13.5, 3.5, and 3, like we said. Defensively, he has not been great for them, and TCU as a whole has been really bad defensively. But he's shooting 40% from 3 on high volume, as well as 43% from the field in 31 minutes for TCU. Now, the problem that I have with Miles is, let's get into how I played against him. So there was a big tournament when I was in 7th grade, I think. And it was like all the good teams in Texas. Somehow my team got in, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I remember I'm standing outside of this massive pavilion, and the Dallas Cowboys team bus comes to the pavilion. And we're all thinking, what the hell? And first person to walk out is Jerry Jones. We're all thinking, it's like the Cowboys doing a photo shoot with us here or something. Like, what's going on? And then remember, we're 7th graders. Jerry Jones' son is on this basketball team. It's one of the best teams in all of Texas. Mike Miles is a starting point guard. And a lot of you might know Mike Miles as he was like a 7th grade sensation. I'm in one of his um, highlight videos. He did a spin move and I turned the opposite direction and nearly ran out of bounds. Not much of a perimeter defender is this guy, C- grade. But I remember we ended up playing against them, and their starting lineup in 7th grade. Mike Miles was only like 5'4" at the time, but then they went like it was like 5'9", 6'1", 6'5", 6'7". No, it was like the I am 12 for $20. Like his team was nuts, and they beat us like 111 to like 28. But one of my biggest memories ever, Mike Miles, who's averaging 13 points as a freshman in the Big 12. I had to guard him. He's dribbling the ball up the court, bounces off his knee, and I get a steal. So can't wait for the grandkids to hear that. But Mike Miles as a player, he's shown a really adept scoring volume so far. He finishes inside very physically. When you look at him, he doesn't scream physical freak, athletic, or anything, but the way he contorts his body inside and finishes at the rim is very promising. And it's something that, I think this gets overvalued a lot is when freshmen come in and they play really well when they're not supposed to. Teams are still comparing them to a lot of the other freshmen in the country when you've already seen a player take that much of a leap that was unexpected already. I think Mike Miles is 0 draft buzz right now. It's just for the theme, but he could profile to be a somewhat interesting NBA player in the future. His player comparison, if I had to give him one, do you guys remember Tim Frazier? He played with like the Pelicans, the Bucks, like everyone. He was that dude who was always on 10-day contracts, so would drop like 18 and 12, and you're like, who the hell is this guy? But I'm going to give a Tim Frazier comparison to Mike Miles. The builds are similar. The ability to finish inside, the tenacity inside on the offensive end is there. They're both bad at defense. Frazier is a much better facilitator than Miles right now. But if Miles can work on that passing game, getting his teammates more involved, working on his reads, watching game film, I think he could improve his draft buzz a lot more. Right now, I'm going to give Mike Miles a late second to staying at TCU grade. And I wish him the best. Just remember, you might have crossed me with a nasty spin move, but I did steal the ball from him. Now, moving on to the next player. This is Ronaldo Segu. Ronaldo Segu he plays for UB, where my dad went to school. And he's a junior. He's 6', 160. He is from Orlando, Florida. But in a tournament in College Station when I was a sophomore, Ron Segu's team was there. We played against him. He had a great game. Probably had like 26 and through 3 quarters, and then they sat in the rest of the game. He hit a 3 like right in my face one time. But as a junior, Segu is averaging 13.5, 3 and 3.5, pretty much the same numbers as Mike Miles, and he's shooting 46.5% from the field. Now, one thing about Segu that I like a lot, you look at his career with the Bulls of UB. His freshman year, 2 points a game, barely played at all. His sophomore year, 8 points a game, 2 steals, 2 rebounds, shot 36 from 3, got minutes boost, started playing more at the end of the season. Now as a junior, he's one of the most high volume players on the whole UB Bulls team. Now, a lot of people are thinking, oh, UB Bulls basketball, what? I mean, they've been really good over the past couple of years. A very formidable program. They have, Javon Graves this year has been awesome for them. But you look at Segu's numbers, obviously his build is already something that is going to be worrisome. He's 6', 160. You just don't see guards like that in the NBA anymore. But Ron Segu is shooting 48% from 3 through 8 games, as well as 47% from the field and 82% from the line. He is a very formidable defensive player as well, despite his small frame. He's in passing lanes. He's like a gnat. He gets everywhere. He pesters players consistently. And I really like Ron Segu, the fact that I played against him. Now, if we're talking draft buzz and did I do a Mike Miles player comparison? I did. Tim Frazier. That's right. Shout out Tim Frazier if you're watching. But Ron Segu, we talk about player comparison. Luke Ridnour, maybe? Yeah, I'll give him Luke Ridnour. The ability to shoot, very efficient, very undersized, can get to the rim despite his small frame. I'll give Ron Segu Luke Ridnour, who if you guys remember, was the white point guard that played for he was like a consistent backup for the Timberwolves in the late 2000s, Luke Ridnour. That's going to be my comparison for Ron Segura. And that's going to wrap up our everyday edition of Prospect Scouting. We went over Greg Brown, who we compared to Jeremy Grant plus, going to be a top 6 pick probably. We went over Mike Miles, who's been rising a little bit in some boards, but I think is a really intriguing player and could be one of those really, really sleeper players. And we went over Ron Segura. To be completely honest, I love Ron Segura. He's probably never going to have any NBA draft buzz at all, but it was just to complete the theme. We did get Greg Brown and Mike Miles in there who have a chance to be very, very good NBA players, especially Greg Brown. Now, moving on to our final topic of the day. It's the game of the day. It's including a player we just talked about. We're going to be going over UT and Texas Tech. I'm wearing my Texas Tech. I know. Last video, I was in a UT shirt. Now I'm in a Texas Tech hoodie. What's wrong with me? I'm an anarchist. I'm asking for wars and battles. But when we look at this game, Longhorns 10-1, Texas Tech at 10-3. They're going to be meeting, I believe they're playing at Texas Tech, right? Where can I find this? No, it's in Austin. I should go. Oh wait, COVID's a thing. Yeah. But both these teams are getting really hot, especially Texas Tech. I mean, you look at Texas Tech's roster. I mean, Mac McClung, transfer from Georgetown. Everyone knows him for his days in high school when he was averaging 40 a game and dunking the entire game. But this is going to be a really interesting game. It's Texas rivalry, which everyone takes seriously. It's a big, big fucking game. The spread, Texas is favored by 2. The over-under is at 131. I personally am going to be taking Texas Tech in this game with an upset. I like the physicality of Texas Tech, what they bring, with multiple guys who can guard in the perimeter. We talk about Mac McClung, but there's other guys in this Texas Tech roster that no one really talks about ever. You got Amari Burnett, who's had a really bad year offensively, but he's still a 6'5" guard that can move and play good defense. And then they also have, I'm going to forget it, Terrence Shannon, who's a really intriguing prospect, either this year or next year. We're probably going to get into him for a prospect scouting video. But that 3-guard trio that Texas Tech runs of McClung, Burnett, and Shannon, I think it's going to pose a lot of problems for Texas Tech on the offensive end. Matt Coleman is going to need to have a big night. I think if Matt Coleman goes for, 16-8, then Texas is going to be sitting pretty. But if he has a bad game where he has like 12-3 on bad shooting, I think Texas Tech takes this one easily. Greg Brown should have a nice night. He matches up well against his Texas Tech squad. He should be able to score inside pretty easily. I hope that he doesn't get too perimeter oriented, though, throughout this game. Now, my MVP pick for this game, I'm going to go Mac McClung. He runs that Texas Tech offense. It flows through him. He's sick. Matt Coleman's not going to be able to guard him. And, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm taking Texas Tech over Texas. I know. Sorry all the UT fans out there. But Tech's taking this one. Now, this is going to be a statement game regardless, though. Whoever wins this game is going to be favorites, if you will. Texas Tech is going to soar up boards if they beat Texas. If Texas can beat Texas Tech after the long, hard schedule they've had over the past couple of weeks, that'll be another statement win for them that solidifies them as a contender. It's going to be awesome. I urge everyone to watch it. It's on ESPN. And, yeah, Raider Red, guns up. Can't believe I just said that. But that's going to wrap it up here for the second ever episode of the Semi-Average Podcast. I'm Wrigley Willis. Thank you guys all for tuning in. And Friday, I am planning to do a 2K rebuild over one of the teams in the 4-team trade. I'm going to be putting a Twitter poll out. So if you care to have a vote or say in what team we're going to be rebuilding on 2K from the James Harden deal today, feel free to follow. I'll be posting it soon. But until then, thank you guys for turning in. My name is Wrigley Willis. I'll catch you next time.